Part 1. The Accidental Experiment and the Ultimate Financial Illusion. Imagine walking into a room where two fathers are standing side by side. One father holds a master's degree, a PhD, and a highly prestigious government job. He works incredibly hard, pays his taxes on time, and constantly tells you that education is the ultimate weapon to conquer the world. Yet, every single month, he secretly stares at his bank account with deep anxiety, wondering how he will pay the next pile of bills. He is trapped in a loop that he cannot escape. Now look at the second father. He never even finished the 8th grade. He has no fancy degrees, no corporate safety net, and no government titles. Yet, he is building a massive empire of hotels, real estate, and businesses. He doesn't work for money. Money works for him. While the highly educated father leaves behind a mountain of debt when he dies, the high school dropout leaves behind tens of millions of dollars to his family, his church, and his community. This is not a fictional fairy tale designed to make you feel good. This is the real-life story of Robert Kiyosaki, the legendary author of Rich Dad, Poor Dad. The highly educated but financially struggling man was his biological father, his poor dad. The 8th grade dropout who became one of the wealthiest men in Hawaii was his best friend's father, his rich dad. This single dynamic sets the stage for the most explosive financial realization of modern history. A realization that shatters everything our school system, our parents, and our society have taught us about money since the day we were born. Think about it for a moment. What were you told when you were growing up? Go to school, get good grades, find a safe, secure job with good benefits, buy a house because it is your biggest asset, work hard, save money, and invest in a retirement fund so you can finally enjoy your life when you turn 65. It sounds like the perfect, responsible plan, doesn't it? But look around you. Look at the millions of people who followed this exact blueprint to the absolute letter. Are they financially free? Are they living their dream lives? No. The vast majority of them are stressed, exhausted, and living paycheck to paycheck. They are running on a metaphorical financial treadmill. They are running as fast as they can, sweating, straining, working overtime, but they are staying in the exact same place. Why does this happen? Why does hard work so rarely lead to true wealth? It happens because we are operating on an outdated industrial age blueprint in a highly advanced information age. We are sent into the modern economic battlefield with absolutely zero financial training. Our schools teach us how to become amazing employees, how to become brilliant doctors, exceptional engineers, precise accountants, and dedicated corporate workers. But they completely fail to teach us how money actually works. They teach us how to work hard for money, but they never teach us how to make money work hard for us. This massive, gaping hole in our education system creates a society of highly intelligent individuals who are financially illiterate. They know how to earn money, but they have absolutely no idea how to keep it, protect it, or multiply it. In this deep, comprehensive, and life-changing breakdown, we are going to tear down the walls of traditional financial ignorance. We are going to deconstruct the exact lessons that Robert Kiyosaki learned directly from his rich dad. We will explore why your home is not an asset, why savers are losers in the modern economy, how the rich use taxes and corporations to protect their wealth, and how you can systematically exit the exhausting daily rat race once and for all. If you are tired of working hard just to watch your bank balance vanish into taxes, bills, and liabilities, pay close attention. This is not just a book summary. This is a complete psychological and practical blueprint for your financial liberation. Let's begin the journey. Part 2, Lesson 1, The Rich Don't Work for Money. To truly understand how wealth is created, we have to go back to the year 1956 in Hilo, Hawaii. Robert Kiyosaki was just a 9-year-old boy attending a public school where the kids of rich plantation owners also studied. One afternoon, Robert realized a harsh reality. The rich kids were being driven to their beach houses in sleek, beautiful station wagons, while he and his best friend, Mike, were left behind because they were categorized as poor kids. This realization stung deeply. Robert went home and asked his biological father, the highly educated school superintendent, Dad, "Can you tell me how to get rich?" His biological father looked up from his papers, hesitated, and said, "Well, if you want to be rich, you have to learn how to make money." But when Robert asked how to do that, his school teacher dad honestly replied, "I don't really know. Go ask Mike's dad. He seems to be building a real business. This was a spark. Robert and Mike approached Mike's father, a man who ran multiple small businesses and plantation stores. Mike's father, the future rich dad, agreed to teach the young boys how to make money, but under one strict condition. He would not teach them in a sterile, boring classroom. He would teach them through real-life experience. He offered them a job at one of his small grocery stores. Their task was to clean the dust off canned goods for 3 hours every single Saturday morning. And their pay? A mere 10 cents an hour. Even in 1956, 10 cents was a shockingly low amount of money. For 4 weeks, 9-year-old Robert dragged himself to the store every Saturday, doing mind-numbing, boring work for a miserable 10 cents an hour. By the 4th week, he was absolutely furious. He felt exploited, used, and underpaid. He was ready to quit. He went straight to his rich dad's office, ready to scream and demand a raise, just like an angry corporate employee demands a raise from their boss. He marched into the office and blurted out, "You lied to me. You said you would teach me, but you just wanted cheap labor. You haven't taught me anything at all." Rich Dad sat back in his chair, smiled calmly, and said, "Not bad. In less than a month. You are talking and acting just like most of my employees." Robert was confused. "What do you mean? I'm demanding what's fair." Rich Dad looked him in the eyes and delivered his very first profound financial lesson. He said, "Robert, most people think that teaching means talking or giving a lecture, but that is not how life teaches you. Life teaches you by pushing you around. Some people let life push them around, while others get angry and push back. But they push back against their boss, their job, or their spouse, not realizing that it is life itself pushing them to learn something new." Rich Dad explained that by paying Robert only 10 cents an hour, he was putting him through a psychological test. He wanted Robert to feel the crushing pinch of working hard for a microscopic amount of money. He asked Robert, "What did you feel when you worked for 10 cents an hour?" Robert admitted he felt angry, frustrated, and deeply trapped. Rich Dad nodded and said, "Most people spend their entire lives in that exact emotional state. They get a job, they get paid a small salary, they feel frustrated, they blame their boss, they demand a raise, and when they get a small raise, they simply increase their lifestyle expenses and get trapped right back into the exact same cycle. They are driven by two incredibly powerful human emotions, fear and greed. First, the fear of not having money drives them to work incredibly hard at a job they often hate. Then, once they receive their paycheck, the emotion of greed and desire takes over. They start imagining all the beautiful things they can buy: a new television, a better car, a bigger house, luxurious clothes. So, they spend every single dollar they earned. This immediate spending creates an even bigger fear of running out of money, which forces them to wake up the next morning, go back to the job, and work even harder. Rich Dad called this endless, exhausting cycle the rat race. The vast majority of the human population is trapped in this race because they let their emotions do the thinking for them. Instead of using their minds to control their emotions, they think that more money will solve their problems, but it almost never does. If a person does not change their financial mindset, a higher salary or a massive promotion will only cause them to spend even more money, pulling them deeper and deeper into debt. This is why the rich don't work for money. They don't sell their valuable time for a recurring weekly or monthly paycheck. Instead, they use their time, energy, and creativity to create or acquire sustainable assets that generate money for them automatically, even while they are sleeping. Part 3. The emotional trap of the rat race. To truly break free from the economic chains that bind most of society, we must look deeper into the psychological anatomy of the rat race. Why is it that brilliant doctors, elite lawyers, and highly paid corporate executives find themselves buried under a mountain of financial stress? It is because they have fallen victim to the classic illusion of financial security. When you are young, you have very few expenses. You live in a small apartment, you ride a bicycle or drive an old car, and your financial obligations are minimal. But then, you get your very first real job. Suddenly, you have an influx of disposable income. You feel powerful. You feel successful. But instead of taking that extra income and putting it into things that generate more money, the psychological trap closes in on you. The emotion of desire whispers in your ear. You tell yourself, I work incredibly hard. I deserve to live in a nicer place. So you move into a bigger apartment with a higher rent. Then you tell yourself, I need a reliable car to get to work. So you take out a massive car loan to buy a shiny new vehicle. Next, you buy expensive clothes, eat at high-end restaurants, and subscribe to premium lifestyle services. Suddenly, your monthly expenses have risen dramatically to match your new income. You look at your bank account at the end of the month, and you realize you have nothing left. Then an intense, subtle fear creeps into your mind. The fear of losing your job, the fear of not being able to pay the rent, the fear of defaulting on your car loan. This fear forces you to become completely submissive to your job. You cannot afford to speak your mind. You cannot afford to take creative risks, and you certainly cannot afford to quit. You are officially trapped. To solve this underlying anxiety, you double down on the only strategy you know. You work even harder. You stay late at the office. You take on extra projects. You sacrifice your weekends, and you pray for a big promotion or a 10% annual raise. And eventually, because of your hard work, the promotion arrives. Your salary increases significantly. You feel a sudden wave of immense relief. You think, finally, my financial problems are completely solved. But within just a few weeks, the emotion of greed strikes again. Now that you make more money, you decide it is time to buy a beautiful suburban house with a 30-year mortgage. You decide it's time to go on an expensive international vacation. You upgrade your car yet again. Without even realizing it, your expenses have climbed rapidly once more, wiping out your entire salary raise. The gap between your income and your expenses narrows down to zero. You are right back where you started, but now the stakes are infinitely higher. Your debt is larger, your responsibilities are heavier, and your underlying fear of financial ruin is terrifyingly real. You are running faster and faster on the treadmill, but you are not moving an inch forward. This is a tragic psychological architecture of the rat race. It is a self-inflicted prison built entirely on financial ignorance and unmanaged emotions. Part 4, Lesson 2, Why Teach Financial Literacy? If money doesn't solve your financial problems, what does? The answer is high-level financial literacy. Rich Dad always used to say, it is not about how much money you make. It is about how much money you keep and how many generations you keep it for. History is filled with tragic stories of professional athletes, lottery winners, and Hollywood celebrities who suddenly came into contact with tens of millions of dollars. They went from absolute poverty to unbelievable wealth overnight. Yet within a few short years, they lost every single penny, ending up completely bankrupt and deeply in debt. Why does this happen so consistently? It happens because acquiring a massive amount of money without a solid foundation of financial literacy is like building a massive 90-story skyscraper on a weak, fragile foundation of sand. The moment a heavy storm hits, the entire structure collapses into a pile of rubble. If you want to build a lasting empire of true wealth, you must first build a deep, unshakable foundation of financial intelligence. And fortunately, the most fundamental rule of financial literacy is incredibly simple. It is so simple that anyone can understand it, yet it is completely overlooked by 95% of the population. Rule number 1 is this: you must absolutely know the difference between an asset and a liability, and you must buy assets. If you want to be rich, this is literally the only rule you ever need to master. It sounds ridiculously simple, doesn't it? Almost too simple to be true. But the reason most people struggle financially is because they constantly buy liabilities while mistakenly believing they are buying assets. This misunderstanding is the root cause of almost all lifelong economic suffering. To eliminate all confusion, let's look at how Rich Dad defined these two critical financial concepts. He did not use complicated, confusing accounting terms that require a university degree to understand. He defined them using basic, everyday cash flow dynamics. An asset is something that puts money directly into your pocket, whether you work or not. A liability is something that takes money out of your pocket on a consistent basis. It is truly that simple. Let's look at some clear examples. If you buy a small apartment, rent it out to a tenant, and every single month, after paying the mortgage, the property taxes, and the maintenance costs, you have a clean profit of $300 cash sitting in your bank account. That property is an asset. It is actively putting money into your pocket. However, If you buy a beautiful, luxurious house for yourself to live in, and every single month you have to pay a massive mortgage, insurance, high property taxes, utility bills, and expensive repair costs, that house is taking money out of your pocket. Therefore, your personal home is not an asset. It is a massive liability. This statement shocks and angers millions of people because we have been systematically brainwashed by banks and real estate agents into believing our home is our greatest investment. But let's look at the cold, hard math of cash flow. When you tie up all your money in a massive house mortgage, 3 tragic things happen to your financial future. First, you lose precious time. You spend decades of your life working hard just to pay off an escalating debt. Second, you lose your investment capital. The money you spend on high mortgage interest and property maintenance could have been actively invested in stocks, businesses, or cash-flowing real estate that grows in value. Third, you lose out on critical financial education. By pouring all your capital into one single piece of residential real estate, you fail to learn how to analyze and navigate other lucrative investment vehicles. Part 5. The Cash Flow Graphics, Visualizing Wealth. To truly lock this concept into your mind, let's visualize how money moves through the lives of 3 different classes of people. The way money flows through your life reveals your true financial habits, and your financial habits determine your ultimate economic destiny. Cash flow is the ultimate story of your financial health. Let's look at the cash flow pattern of a poor person. A poor person receives their income from their daily job, which is usually a modest hourly wage or salary. The moment that money enters their hands, it immediately exits through their expense column to cover basic, daily survival needs. It goes straight to pay for food, rent, clothes, transportation, and basic utilities. They have absolutely zero assets, and they have zero liabilities. They live completely paycheck to paycheck. At the end of the month, their bank balance is exactly zero. They are entirely dependent on their next day of physical labor to survive. Now, let's look at the cash flow pattern of a middle-class person. This is the most dangerous and deceptive category of all. A middle-class person gets a good job, and their income increases. But as their income increases, their liabilities increase at the exact same speed. They take their new salary and use it to buy a house mortgage, a car loan, premium credit cards, and expensive consumer electronics. They look at these things and proudly think, "Look at all these assets I own." But the cold reality is that these liabilities generate a massive, heavy stream of recurring monthly expenses. Their money flows from their income column into their liability column and straight out of their expense column into the hands of the banks and credit card companies. They are running on a treadmill at maximum speed, completely buried in debt, and terrified of losing their primary source of employment income. Finally, let's look at the cash flow pattern of a rich person. This is where the magic happens. A rich person's cash flow completely bypasses a traditional reliance on a job. The rich person focuses all their time, energy, and capital on building a robust asset column. They buy stocks that pay consistent dividends. They buy bonds that pay steady interest. They buy real estate that generates monthly rental income. They invest in private businesses that generate continuous automated profits. They buy intellectual property like books, patents, or software that pays ongoing royalties. The cash flow of a rich person starts directly in their asset column. The assets automatically generate a massive, continuous stream of income. This income flows into their pocket, and it is so large that it easily covers all their daily expenses and luxury items, with a massive amount of money left over. What do they do with that leftover money? They don't spend it on useless items. They take that excess cash and pour it straight back into their asset column, buying even more stocks, more real estate, and more businesses. This creates an unstoppable, compounding snowball effect of wealth. The rich get richer, not because they work harder, but because their assets work harder and harder for them every single day. Part 6, Lesson 3, Mind Your Own Business. One of the most revolutionary concepts in Rich Dad, Poor Dad is a profound distinction between your profession and your business. Most people spend their entire lives working hard in someone else's business, making that person incredibly wealthy while completely neglecting their own financial future. Think about this deeply. What is your current profession? You might say, "I am a banker, I am a software engineer, or I am a store manager." But when you look closer, that is simply your job. It is your daily profession. It is not your business. Your business is your asset column. To achieve true financial freedom, you must keep your day job to pay your bills, but you must simultaneously start minding your own business by actively building, protecting, and expanding your personal asset column. To illustrate this point beautifully, Robert Kiyosaki shares a famous story about Ray Kroc, the legendary founder of McDonald's. Ray Kroc was once invited to speak to a class of MBA students at the University of Texas. After an inspiring and highly detailed lecture, Ray looked at the students and asked a simple question. Ladies and gentlemen, can anyone tell me what business I am in? The students all laughed, thinking it was a joke. Ray asked again, seriously. Finally, one bold student stood up and said, Ray, everyone in the world knows you are in the hamburger business. Ray Kroc chuckled, shook his head, and said, I knew you would say that, but the truth is, I am not in the hamburger business. My business is real estate. Ray explained that while his primary core profession was selling hamburger franchises, his true business was the systematic acquisition of prime real estate under every single McDonald's franchise across the globe. He knew that the burgers were simply a brilliant vehicle to fund the purchase of some of the most valuable, income-generating land and buildings in the world today. Today, McDonald's is one of the largest single owners of real estate on the planet. They minded their business. Most people make the tragic mistake of spending their lives working for everyone else except themselves. First, they work for the owners of the company they're employed by, making the CEO and the shareholders incredibly rich. Second, they work for the government, because a massive percentage of their hard-earned salary is taken away automatically through income taxes before they even see it. Third, they work for the bank, because their remaining money goes directly to pay off credit card debt and home mortgages. Minding your own business means changing your financial focus completely. It means that when you receive your monthly paycheck, your absolute top priority is not to pay the bills, it is not to pay the credit card company, and it is not to buy luxury clothes. Your top priority is to pay yourself first. You take a fixed percentage of your income and immediately channel it into your asset column, buying assets that lock in value and generate cash. You become the absolute CEO of your own financial empire. Your job is simply your temporary funding mechanism. Your asset column is your true business. Part 7. Lesson 4. The history of taxes and the power of corporations. To fully understand how the rich protect their wealth from being eroded, we must look into the historical origin of taxes and the legal power of corporations. Most average citizens believe that taxes were originally created to punish the rich and help the poor. They believe in the classic Robin Hood myth. Take from the rich and give to the poor. But historical reality reveals a completely different story. Originally, in England and America, there were absolutely no permanent income taxes. Taxes were only levied occasionally to fund specific expenses, such as major wars. However, in the early 20th century, the government successfully introduced a permanent income tax by selling it to the public as a tool to level the playing field. The masses were told, we are going to tax the wealthy elite and use that money to build schools, roads, and infrastructure for everyone. The poor and the middle class voted heavily in favor of this tax law because they wanted to see the rich get taxed. But the government is a massive, hungry entity that requires an ever-increasing amount of money to sustain its massive bureaucracy. As government spending exploded, the money collected from the small, wealthy elite was no longer enough. The tax laws had to be expanded. Slowly but surely, the tax brackets were lowered, and the income tax net began to wrap itself around the middle class and the poor. The very tax that the masses voted for to punish the rich ended up punishing the poor and middle class who supported it in the first place. But here's the critical difference between the wealthy and the masses. The rich did not sit around and complain. They used their deep financial intelligence to find legal loopholes to protect their hard-earned money. They looked at the legal framework of the world and discovered the most powerful financial shield ever created, the modern corporation. Many people think a corporation is a massive physical factory with a huge neon sign and hundreds of employees working in cubicles. But in reality, a corporation is not a physical place at all. A corporation is simply a legal document, a folder of paper sitting in a lawyer's office, registered with the government. It is a legal entity that exists purely on paper. But that piece of paper grants the rich immense financial advantages and massive tax protections. To see the stark, shocking contrast between how a regular employee is taxed versus how a corporation is taxed, let's look at their respective operational frameworks. A regular employee operates under this rigid financial structure. First, they work hard at their job. Second, they earn their salary. Third, the government steps in and takes a massive percentage of that salary through income tax before they even receive their paycheck. Fourth, the employee is left with a small net amount, and they must try to survive and pay all their expenses on whatever is left over. Now, let's look at how a rich person utilizing a corporation operates. First, the corporation earns a massive amount of revenue. Second, the corporation spends that revenue on all legitimate business expenses, including corporate cars, business trips, dinners, laptops, employee salaries, and operational costs. Third, only after all expenses have been fully paid, the corporation is taxed on the remaining net profit. Do you see the unbelievable power of this dynamic? An employee is taxed first and forced to live on the crumbs that remain. A corporation spends its money first and is only taxed on the leftover crumbs. This single legal loophole allows the rich to legally keep millions of dollars in their pockets, money that would otherwise vanish into government taxes. This is why financial intelligence is so vital. By understanding corporate law, tax codes, and accounting systems, you can legally protect your wealth and prevent the fruits of your labor from being taken away. Part 8. The 4 pillars of financial intellect. If you want to master this level of financial protection and growth, you must actively build what Robert Kiyosaki calls the IQ of financial intellect. This intellect is not an abstract concept. It is made up of 4 distinct, core technical skills that you must consistently study and improve over time. The first pillar is accounting. Accounting is what Robert calls financial literacy. It is the ability to read, understand, and analyze financial statements. If you cannot read a balance sheet, if you cannot look at an income statement and understand the exact health of a business or an investment, you are effectively blind in the world of money. You must learn how to track the exact numbers of your cash flow, understand the relationship between income and expenses, and clearly identify what is a true asset versus a deceptive liability. The second pillar is investing. This is the science and art of making money. It involves understanding financial strategies, identifying market opportunities, and learning how to deploy your capital into assets that generate maximum returns with calculated, managed risks. It requires creativity, strategic thinking, and the ability to look at market data to spot trends that others completely miss. The third pillar is understanding markets. This is the science of supply and demand. You must look at an investment opportunity not just through your personal emotions, but through the objective lens of the current market conditions. Is there a genuine consumer demand for this asset? Is the asset overvalued or undervalued based on current economic trends? You must master the psychology of the market, understanding that fear and greed drive market cycles, and you must learn how to buy when others are terrified and sell when others are overly greedy. The fourth pillar is the law. This is the deep technical understanding of tax advantages, corporate structures, and legal regulations. Operating without a solid understanding of the law is like playing a high-stakes game of chess without knowing the rules of the board. By mastering corporate law, asset protection strategies, and state tax codes, you can legally optimize your investments, minimize your tax liabilities, and protect your personal assets from lawsuits, creditors, and government overreach. When you combine these 4 pillars, accounting, investing, markets, and law, you become an absolute financial powerhouse. You possess the intellectual tools to look at any economic situation, spot hidden wealth opportunities, and build an unshakable empire of true generational wealth. Part 9, Lesson 5, The Rich Invent Money. In the modern world, the most valuable asset you possess is not gold, it is not real estate, and it is not a large bank account. The most valuable asset in the information age is your mind. If your mind is trained properly, it can literally create an unbelievable amount of wealth out of absolutely nothing in a matter of seconds. Conversely, if your mind is untrained, it can take a massive fortune and completely destroy it overnight. Rich Dad used to say, in the real world, it is often not the smart who get ahead, but the bold. Most people fail to achieve financial success not because they lack intelligence, but because they are paralyzed by excessive fear and self-doubt. They wait around for the perfect opportunity to fall into their lap, or they wait for the economy to be perfectly stable before they take action. But the rich don't wait for opportunities. The rich use their financial creativity to invent opportunities. What does it mean to invent money? It means looking at a financial problem or a market inefficiency that everyone else is complaining about and engineering a creative solution that generates massive value. Let's look at a practical example from Robert Kiyosaki's own investment journey. During a severe economic downturn in the early 1990s, the real estate market in Phoenix, Arizona, completely collapsed. People were terrified, desperate, and practically giving away their properties for pennies on the dollar. The average person looked at the news and thought, real estate is dangerous right now. I should hold on to my cash. But Robert uses financial intelligence to see a massive opportunity. He found a beautiful house that was tied up in a complicated bankruptcy court dispute. The house was worth $75,000, but the desperate owner was willing to sell it for just $20,000. Robert didn't even use his own money to buy it. He put down a small $2,000 deposit that he borrowed from a friend, secured the legal contract for the house, and within just 3 days, he sold that exact contract to another eager buyer for $40,000. Think about what happened in that simple transaction. In less than 72 hours, Robert made a clean profit of $20,000 cash without using a single dollar of his own money, and without doing any physical labor. He didn't work for money. He used his accounting, investment, market, and legal knowledge to see a hidden opportunity, construct a legal bridge, and invent money out of thin air. This is what the rich do consistently. They don't look at the world with a mindset of scarcity. They look at the world with a mindset of abundance and strategy. They understand that money is not a physical piece of paper backed by gold. Money is simply an agreement, a psychological concept, a game of strategy. The more creative your mind becomes, the more money you can systematically invent. Part 10. Lesson 6. Work to learn, don't work to earn. One of the most tragic flaws of the modern education system is that it teaches young people to specialize deeply in one single narrow skill. We are told to become a highly specialized expert, a specialist in corporate law, a specialist in pediatric medicine, or a specialist in a specific programming language. While specialization can certainly secure a steady corporate paycheck, it completely cripples your ability to build long-term financial independence. Rich Dad delivered a highly unconventional piece of advice to Robert. He said, "You want to know a little bit about a lot of things. If you look at the ultra-wealthy, they are rarely the absolute best technical experts in any single field. They are not the greatest programmers. They are not the top accountants. And they are not the most brilliant lawyers. Instead, they are master generalists. They understand a little bit about management, a little bit about finance, a little bit about marketing, a little bit about sales, and a little bit about law. They specialize in hiring people who are far smarter than them, and they manage those specialists to build massive systems of wealth." When Robert Kiyosaki graduated from college, his poor dad, the highly educated school superintendent, was incredibly proud and wanted him to take a stable, permanent job with a secure salary. But Robert chose a completely different path based on his rich dad's advice. First, he joined the Marine Corps and went to Vietnam to learn how to fly helicopters. Why did he do this? Not for the military pay, but to learn the deep psychological skill of leadership, how to lead men into dangerous situations, how to manage intense stress, and how to stay disciplined under extreme pressure. After returning from the war, Robert did something even more shocking to his biological father. He quit a high-paying, secure job with a shipping company to take a position as a low-tier salesman at the Xerox Corporation. Robert was a deeply shy, introverted young man who was terrified of rejection. But he knew that if he wanted to be rich, he had to master the absolute number one skill of business, the ability to sell and communicate. For the first 2 years at Xerox, Robert was a complete failure. He was at the bottom of the sales charts, and he faced brutal, painful rejection every single day. He wanted to quit, but he stayed focused on his true goal. He wasn't working for the monthly commissions. He was working to learn the art of sales. He read books, attended training programs, practiced his pitches relentlessly, and eventually, he conquered his fear of rejection. Within a few years, Robert became the absolute number one top salesman at Xerox. The moment he achieved that peak skill level, he immediately resigned from the secure corporate job to start his own business. Most average people work strictly to earn a paycheck. They focus entirely on short-term financial survival. They take a job based on the salary, the health benefits, and the dental plan. But when you do that, you are trading your long-term wealth potential for short-term comfort. If you want to be rich, you must completely shift your perspective. You must take jobs based entirely on what you will learn, not what you will earn. If you are weak in sales, take a sales job just to learn how to communicate. If you are weak in accounting, take a basic role at a financial firm just to learn how numbers move through a business. Treat your early career as a highly practical, paid university where your primary objective is to acquire the critical skills of leadership, sales, marketing, and financial management. Systems and skills are what build fortunes, not salaries. Part 11. Overcoming the obstacles to success. Even after a person acquires a solid foundation of financial literacy, masters the difference between assets and liabilities, and develops a strong set of business skills, they can still face a massive wall of failure. Why? Because knowing what to do is only half the battle. The other half is overcoming the intense psychological obstacles that prevent people from taking real action. There are 5 major internal obstacles that hold even the most financially literate people back from achieving true wealth. The first obstacle is fear. Specifically, the terrifying fear of losing money. Let's be completely honest. Nobody likes to lose money. It is painful, frustrating, and discouraging. But here is the ultimate truth of wealth creation. Every single rich person has lost money at some point in their life. But many poor people have never lost a single penny because they never even got into the game. They play it so safe that they guarantee their own financial failure. Rich Dad always said that the difference between a rich person and a poor person is how they handle failure. When a poor person loses money on an investment, they get crushed, depressed, and they quit forever. But when a rich person loses money, they treat it as a valuable lesson, a tuition fee paid to the universe to acquire deep wisdom. They take that failure and use it to become even smarter investors. The second obstacle is cynicism. Cynics are the people who constantly sit on the sidelines and criticize everything. They are the ones who say, what if the market crashes? What if the economy collapses? What if this investment goes to zero? Their minds are so filled with doubt and negativity that they completely paralyze themselves. While the cynic sits in their comfortable chair analyzing why an opportunity might fail, the rich person takes calculated risks, fixes problems as they arise, and captures the wealth before the cynic even finishes complaining. The third obstacle is laziness. Now, when we think of laziness, we usually picture someone lying on a couch watching television all day long. But there's a much more dangerous, deceptive form of laziness in the modern world: busy laziness. This is the person who keeps themselves incredibly busy with their day job, their household chores, and their social commitments, purely as a psychological shield to avoid looking at their true financial reality. They are too busy to sit down and read a book on investing. They are too busy to manage their expenses. They are too busy to build an asset column. To conquer this form of laziness, you must inject a healthy dose of desire into your mind. You must look at your life and ask, what would my life look like if I never had to worry about money again? Use that desire to break out of the busy trap and take control of your economic future. The fourth obstacle is bad habits. Your daily habits dictate your long-term success far more than your technical knowledge. A classic bad financial habit of the poor and middle class is paying everyone else before they pay themselves. When they get paid, they pay the landlord, the credit card company, the grocery store, and the electric company first. Then they try to invest whatever small amount is left over. Usually, nothing is left. The rich do the exact opposite. They pay themselves first, even if they are short on cash to pay their bills. Why do they do this? Because the immense pressure of creditors and bill collectors screaming for money forces the rich to tap into their deep financial creativity, to invent new ways to make money and cover the gap. The fifth and final obstacle is arrogance. Arrogance is the dangerous combination of ego and ignorance. Many people use arrogance to hide their lack of knowledge. They think that what they don't know isn't important. But every time you're arrogant, you lose money because you fail to realize that what you don't know is exactly what is causing you to fail. Drop your ego. Become a lifelong student of money. Admit your areas of ignorance and constantly seek out wisdom from those who have already achieved the financial results you desire. Part 12. The Action Blueprint for Your Financial Freedom. We have traveled through a massive, transformative journey of financial intelligence. We have shattered the myths of traditional education, analyzed the cash flow patterns of the wealthy, explored the power of corporations, and unmasked the psychological traps that keep the masses running in the endless rat race. But all of this knowledge is completely useless if you do not take immediate, decisive action. To help you launch your journey toward absolute financial liberation right now, here is a clear, step-by-step practical action blueprint based on the ultimate wisdom of Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Step number 1. Stop doing what you are currently doing if it isn't working. If you are working hard every single day but your bank balance is staying the same or decreasing, stop. Take a deep breath. Step away from the daily chaos and evaluate your financial life with complete honesty. Look at your habits. Look at your spending patterns and identify exactly where your hard-earned cash is bleeding out into the hands of others. Step number 2, look for new and unconventional financial ideas. Start reading books written by self-made millionaires. Listen to educational podcasts, attend real estate seminars, study corporate finance, and immerse your mind in the language of money. Your brain is a powerful computer. Feed it with high-quality financial data so it can begin to spot wealth opportunities in your daily environment. Step number 3, find someone who has already achieved what you want to achieve. Look for a mentor, an investor, or a business owner who is living the exact life of financial freedom that you desire. Take them out to lunch. Ask them deep, targeted questions about their strategies, analyze their failures, and study their daily habits. Modeling the success of others is the fastest shortcut to financial mastery. Step number 4, invest heavily in your education before you invest in any physical asset. Remember, your mind is your greatest wealth-generating weapon. Before you pour thousands of dollars into a stock or a piece of real estate, pour your time and capital into your own financial intellect. Buy courses, read books, attend workshops, and master the technical skills of accounting, investing, markets, and law. Step number 5, pay yourself first with absolute discipline. The very next time you receive any form of income, whether it is a monthly salary, a freelance payment, or a cash gift, do not touch a single dollar. Pay your bills until you have taken a fixed percentage, 10%, 20%, or 30%, and move it directly into your asset column. Use that dedicated capital to buy dividend stocks, gold, income-generating real estate, or to fund your own small business venture. Let the pressure of your remaining bills motivate you to create new streams of income. Step number 6, focus entirely on buying assets, not liabilities. Every single time you are about to pull out your credit card to buy a shiny new item, ask yourself this critical, sobering question. Is this thing putting money into my pocket, or is it taking money out of my pocket? If it is a liability, put your card away. Wait until your asset column grows large enough that the automated income it generates can easily pay for your luxury items without you lifting a finger. The path to financial freedom is not a get-rich-quick scheme. It is a profound, lifelong psychological shift. It requires immense courage, consistent discipline, unshakable focus, and a relentless commitment to lifelong learning. But the reward is the most precious gift in human existence, true personal freedom. The freedom to wake up every morning and decide exactly how you want to spend your time. The freedom to work on what you love, with the people you love, for the purposes you choose. Stop working for money. Start making money work for you. Take control of your financial destiny today. Step out of the exhausting rat race once and for all, and build a legacy of abundance and power that you truly deserve.